Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sun Solar Panel. I hope everyone's doing great. I appreciate you being here. We've got some people here early, and it's always fun to have you guys around. My name is Dave King. This is the Sun Solar Panel. If let us know in the comments if the background noise is a little much for PLR. He's trying to enjoy himself at a coffee shop right now. Our guest today is Paul Richardson of the Cave Show PLR. How you doing, man?
What's going on, man? I'm trying to be sophisticated in a coffee shop. I feel very,
You're trying to get
Chicago.
air conditioning, is what you're trying to do.
Hey, I'm feeling very Chicago Saturday morning when you are on the Gold Coast, with at a coffee shop, not drinking coffee. So I'm trying to get that whole vibe going.
There you go. At a coffee shop, but not drinking coffee. So you're only there for the atmosphere.
Well, that and my peach smoothie.
And your what?
Peach smoothie.
Oh, I thought you said pea smoothie. I'm like, wow, there you go.
Your hearing is terrible, Dave.
Do you see how old I am? We both got the white beards here. Brandon heard you clearly. Got the young ears. And our other partner today is Zona. Brandon, how's it going, man?
Not bad. I could use some coffee, that's for sure. So, good to be back.
A little much. That's a nice way. Starbucks. A little much. That's a nice way of putting it. PLR is going to look crazy talking passionately about the Suns in a coffee shop. That's true. You're going to ruin their atmosphere by talking about a team that lost by 60 points their last two games of the season.
It's all good. All good.
Yeah.
Peach smoothie will bring some levity to this situation.
That's right. Okay, so we have a big show today. Guess what? Did anything happen this week? I don't know. Did something? What's going on in Phoenix that happened this week that I predicted on last Saturday's show? What could have happened this week that I predicted, Zona? You want to tell me?
Something about Bismack or
something about a center on the team. Come on, give it up, man. I need my props.
Deandre Ayton is back. You called it, and everyone's calling you a little crazy there.
I was called dumb by somebody in our own chat. What's funny is that person was actually watching the live YouTube show for an hour and a half and then called me dumb for predicting something that ended up coming true. So, yeah, I'm going to gloat about it. So I predicted this. I didn't actually think for sure it was going to happen, but I thought there was a really good chance because I didn't think the Suns were going to take a bad sign and trade to acquire. So let's recap what happened. The Pacers were clearing space. They're the only team in the NBA besides the San Antonio Spurs. There's two teams in the NBA who could make enough space to sign Deandre Ayton to an offer sheet. The Indiana Pacers had a lot of interest in getting Deandre Ayton on their team. They were trying to negotiate a sign and trade where they didn't need all $31 million in cap space, but then the Suns called their bluff. They threatened to do an offer sheet through their agent, through his agent, through the team people and all that. And the Suns called their bluff. And then the Pacers were forced to actually present that offer sheet. The Pacers said, really, they don't like offer sheets. They didn't make it they didn't make it creative at all. They just finally put the offer sheet out there that they really wanted, Deandre Ayton at the max level. Deandre Ayton's agent did a good job negotiating with Pacers front office folks to make sure that he got that offer that he wanted and didn't accept anything less. It is less than the Suns could have offered in their, on the maximum level, but it's the most that any other team could offer Ayton. So you got offered 4 years, $133 million. then came out the rumor that he was going to sign. Remember, Woj broke it at about 1 o'clock saying the Pacers are going to present the offer sheet. And Deandre Ayton is to ink the offer sheet, but he hadn't inked it yet. And I pointed out on Twitter that read the words. The words are that he hadn't actually signed yet because the Pacers were trying to do one last-ditch effort to negotiate a sign and trade so they can guarantee the ability to keep DA after this was over. But the Suns continued to call their bluff. Finally, the Pacers said, fine, let's go ahead and do it. They did the offer sheet. They faxed the offer sheet over to the Suns, or however you electronically submit it these days. Maybe it's a DocuSign, who the heck knows. But they sent it over to the Suns, and the Suns agreed that they would immediately match that offer. The Suns didn't even have to think about it. If you just make a decision in 90 seconds on $133 million, I have a question for you, PLR. Did you just make that decision in that 90 seconds, or did you already know what your answer was going to be?
Well, the last time I spent $133 million, it only took me about 10 seconds to figure out how to spend it. The Suns knew what they were doing from the beginning. They were not going to offer him the max that they could offer him, so they were waiting for a team to offer him something so they could immediately match that offer. So it wasn't a if they would. It's almost like, as you said, the fax came over. The fax came over, and 2 seconds later, the fax went back. So
the 90 seconds is as long as it would take to actually put your name on the match line and send it back.
Exactly, and there was no way. Okay, first of all, the Suns did, I think, in terms of negotiating the contract this offseason, did it the right way. I think they should have signed him last year. That's a whole other story. But by doing this, what they did was they let the whole market dry up. So Deandre Ayton actually didn't really have a choice but to come back because there was only 2 teams that he could go to, and we all know the Spurs are trying to tank. So they weren't going to take that contract on. So
Indiana was the only avenue for that max contract.
Exactly. So negotiating this way, was the way to go. Again, I think they should have done it last year, but we're here now, and I think they did the right thing by matching it. And they knew they were going to match it. They knew what Indiana could spend, and they had already made up their mind that's what they were going to do.
Yeah, Zona, what do you think about the events of the day?
I thought it was hilarious to match in under 3 minutes or whatever it was Gamba reported. I took that as like the ultimate FU to the Pacers for like, oh, you really didn't think we're going to match? Like, we're going to lose the number 1 pick for nothing? That was never an option. I think it simply came down to 2 things. It's one, you're going to get assets that you actually want back on the team that you think could help and also help you get Durant. Or option B, you're just going to match the contract. And Indiana just didn't come close, according to reports, of what the Suns wanted in the sign and trade. And I'm glad the Suns didn't take anything less and just settle and make their team worse. So to me, this is the best case scenario with the Ayton situation, because in any sign and trade, they're going to lose. That's just how those work. So the best version of their team is still intact. And now it's just a waiting game on this whole Durant situation. But, I think Sam Vecini tweeted, don't love the Suns process, but this is probably how they wanted it to play out. And I was like, that's pretty fitting on like the whole James Jones era. You just got to kind of wait for all the dust to settle. And typically they get what they want. And that's just kind of how it's worked out. So hopefully that continues with Durant.
That's what I was going to say is has James Jones ever worried about the media liking his process? Has he ever worried about how every transaction looks? He doesn't care how the transaction looks to everybody. What he cares is that he got what he wanted. Now, I don't know firsthand what's going through James Jones and Robert Sarver's minds. I don't really want to know, especially that latter, but I don't know for sure what was going through their minds. But all I know is what James Jones has said publicly to people who quote him in the press, not the behind the scenes, not the rumors, not the third level front office guy who heard stories and all that stuff and has his opinion. What we have, and that's who, people get sources from, the actual GM of the Phoenix Suns said a year ago that DeAndre Ayton's camp would only consider the 5-year rookie max extension. And that is the designated player extension. That is the one that we've since found out is really important. And we'll talk about that in a little bit with relation to the Kevin Durant trade. But for the moment, let's just talk about a year ago. A year ago, James Jones, he did one interview after Deandre Ayton and his camp and the Phoenix Suns did not agree to an extension. He did one interview. He did it with Sam Amick, I believe, of The Athletic. And he told Sam specifically that the only thing we didn't want to do with Deandre was do the 5-year version of the max contract. We would have talked about a 3-year, we would have talked about a 4-year, but they only wanted to talk about the 5-year. Because of the designated rookie max thing, we did not want a second designated rookie max player on our roster at this time because we're still building toward a championship. Now, we all took it as, you don't want to be unable to acquire a third. So what we learned at the time is you can only have 2 designated rookie max extensions. Rookie max, meaning after their 4th year, they start a maximum extension at that seniority level, which is what some people have coined the fun max because it's about a third less than guys like Kyrie Irving can do. It's about a third less than, Kevin Durant, for example, makes. It's certainly, but it's still that max. It's still that good max. And what you can only do is you can only have 2 at a time. And so what if and the Suns were looking for a point guard? Chris Paul falls off in the next, and that would be a 3-year overlap if Deandre Ayton had signed a year ago to that designated 5-year max that his camp was the only one they would consider. That's 3 years where the Suns were not allowed to acquire any other designated rookie max players on the same timeline as Booker and Ayton. So when Chris Paul falls off, then all of a sudden now you're not allowed to acquire. Who else has a rookie designated max? De'Aaron Fox of Sacramento. Not the greatest player in the world, but guess what? He's a point guard they really liked in the draft back in the day. Jamal Murray, guys like that who could at some point become available. Well, then we're like, what? Designated rookie max guys are going to become available. That's ridiculous. Blah, blah, blah. And we blew it off. A year later now, we're in the Kevin Durant situation. The Brooklyn Nets have a designated rookie max guy on their roster in Ben Simmons. They acquired last year during the season in exchange for James Harden. Now all of a sudden, and there's a rule that you can only have one of those guys who's acquired via trade. Now all of a sudden the Nets are not even allowed to add a designated maxed Ayton to their team, even if they had wanted to, or a designated maxed Booker, or a designated maxed Bam Adebayo, or a designated maxed even De'Aaron Fox. They wouldn't even be allowed to acquire. And, even it's just ridiculous. Even Andrew Wiggins, they wouldn't be allowed to acquire because without jettisoning Ben Simmons at the same time. So all of a sudden now the Nets, in a position to have to replace a superstar, can't even go out and get a second young star that Kevin Durant should be able to return and trade. And now the Nets are screwed in that they can't acquire a guy like that who really wants to, who might want to join their team and play with Ben Simmons, who knows, and make a really good team post Durant, post Harden, post Kyrie Irving. So the Nets are screwed. And that's the reason James Jones didn't want to 5-year max Deandre Ayton, but they were willing to talk about a 3 or a 4-year. Now, rumors came out, there were second hand, third hand, fourth hand, that the Suns didn't view him as a max player. But the only thing James Jones ever said publicly was they didn't view him as the 5-year max guy. And then his agent got a little pissed off. And then they started going, well, fine, we'll find our max deal somewhere else. Well, guess what? Another team can only offer 4. And guess what? The Suns are okay with that. What I thought was funny and still, I was hoping we'd be able to get an Indiana Pacers person on the pod today, but we didn't. I didn't get a chance to, and they may not even know. What I thought was funny about that offer sheet is why it was a straight 4-year, no options, no nothings, no trade kickers, no, nothing like that. It was just straight 4 years, as if the Suns had offered it and Ayton had taken it. But the Pacers apparently didn't want to make it even harder for the Suns to accept, because they could have front loaded a bit of the money. It still would have been 133 million total, but they could have front loaded a little bit of it.
You know what I think that goes back to is just that quote about I can't remember if it was the Pacers owner or GM saying they don't believe in offer sheets because they don't want to like screw teams over. So to me, I think it was just like a good faith offer that, if he wants to be here, like, and the Suns don't want him, then we'll gladly take him. We're not going to try to do this just to, screw the Suns over by adding that poison pill. So I think it was just like a good faith negotiation that the Pacers probably genuinely thought the Suns were not going to match, and they wanted him in Indiana. And why bid against yourself if you're the Suns? I think it just worked out perfect, like you mentioned. So
it did work out perfect for the Suns. James Jones did not blink for a whole year in the game of chicken. Now, Coda Kid says that, let's see, Deandre Ayton agent need to be fired. He got Ayton the max, so I don't think he needs to get fired. He actually got Ayton max money. It's for 1 year less. Now, this is all in Ayton's favor, by the way, because guess what his max pays him through? The 22, 23, 24, and 25 seasons, okay? So he's going to become back on the market right when the new TV deal kicks in, and all of a sudden the market is flush with money. So even if at 28 years old, he's becomes like an Andre Drummond, even if he becomes the guy who went from max money to, gosh, you know what, maybe the mid-level exception. The mid-level exception at that time will still be $20-30 million. I don't know. I mean, he'll still be worth a lot of money, even because of the TV deal. So he's not ultimately going to lose that much money. He just didn't get it guaranteed to him right now. Humble Rumble Wojo said that the Suns don't view him as a max. That's what I'm telling you guys. They're hearing this back channel through secondary, tertiary people. Like, they're not quoting James Jones said he's not worth max money. James Jones is not saying he's not worth max money. So we take these rumors, these back channel comments as gold when they're not necessarily gold.
Dave, you know what though? I may not say they're gold, but they might be silver, because you have to believe what you see, not what someone says. And the treatment of Deandre for the last year kind of spoke volumes a little bit. And I don't just mean contract-wise. His importance on the team at times kind of said it as well. The way they ran, the way they don't run plays for him sometimes, the way they don't get him involved. I hate to keep going back to Game 7, not even giving him a touch until 8 minutes to go in the first quarter. Sometimes you can say it with your actions more than you can with your words. And I don't think the Suns make him important enough, to be honest with you.
I think there's two things. At play with Ayton. One is that his attitude, his daily work ethic is a little bit below the level that the rest of the team wants. So while Mikal Bridges is just as carefree as Ayton, he works his ass off. And Ayton doesn't necessarily work his ass off. He works hard. He's gotten better. He's really, really good player. And what's funny is Monty Williams gets frustrated with the he doesn't sacrifice everything for the team thing sometimes. He gets a little frustrated with that. But at the same time, right after, remember last December when Bismack Biyombo comes in and puts up a 16-8, that was right after JaVale McGee does a 29-17. That was right after, and we're all talking on Twitter going, oh, wow, any center can succeed in this team. The very second Deandre Ayton was back active, Monty Williams played him 35 minutes. He had 28 points. He had 12 rebounds. And I asked Monty after the game, I said, what made you go right back to DA at full minutes when your centers have been playing so well? And Monty just kind of looked at me like gave me the you're a fool look, right? And then he's like, because he's Deandre Ayton. He's the best two-way player we've got. He's better at both ends as a single player than anyone else we've got at that position. And he said it in a way that didn't like denigrate Bismack or denigrate JaVale, but he basically just said, because he's Ayton. I mean, that's the mark of a great player. Whether you're happy with his over-the-top work ethic or under-the-top work ethic, whatever it is, he's still a really great player. So while the Suns wish he would grow up a little bit, while the Suns wish he would wake up and dream, and just go right to the basketball court and work out and get in his best possible shape and learn more offensive moves, he's still one of the best players in the game. He's a top 40 player, which is top 10%. Now he's being paid like a top 40 player. And that's really all it is. People think Max, oh God, he's not as good as Kevin Durant. No, but he's not getting paid like Kevin Durant. He's getting paid like one of the top 40 players in the game, and that's about it. So I think the Suns realized that. And yes, they might have wanted to, gosh, if we could have Nikola Jokic instead, we'll take it. Well, of course they would. But beyond Jokic and Embiid as your center, he's one of the next best centers. It's a drop-off, but he's one of the next best centers. So, Zona, what are you thinking about this whole conversation? Do you think the Suns got what they wanted, or do you think the Suns were stuck with what they had to take?
I think ultimately they got what they wanted. If they go out and pay DeAndre, that max last offseason, just compared to what they got him for, they're saving money. And I know every Suns fan here is happy Robert Sarver is saving money. But on a serious note, I think DeAndre just getting that contract, the label that it's the largest offer sheet in NBA history, that's something that I think, kind of sells for him in terms of how they announced that. So I'm happy he got paid. It was kind of a crazy process, and I think there's a lot of noise that Suns fans just kind of had to block out. And taking a step back, it seems like them matching the contract was always the most realistic path, unless some sort of three-way trade landing Durant happened. So, with that situation just kind of on pause right now, it makes the most sense. And, I almost feel bad for Indiana fans because they're all super psyched about DeAndre, and, they have a nice core that would have surrounded him, but it was never going to happen unless it was a sign and trade. So, their intel must have just been bad on the Suns, thought process, and must have thought they're just going to decline it or refuse to match.
It could have been that the Pacers were hoping for a sign and trade the whole time to get rid of Turner, who they're also tired of.
Yeah.
Had listened to the rumors that the Suns were tired of Ayton, had hoped to do a sign and trade, and then they were just stuck. They were stuck holding the ball, holding the bag. They were stuck with their pants down, whatever analogy you want to use, and they had to do it. So they just did it, and they knew the Suns at that point were going to match. Mike B, I just want to point out in the chat, here we go again. Now all of a sudden we've got these, there's no reason Ayton should not average 23, 11 or 12 rebounds and 2.5 blocks. Can someone who's got a computer in front of them, who's not trying to run a podcast, do a search for the last player to actually put those averages up there, and then tell me how many players in NBA history have posted 23, 12, and 2.5 in a season? And maybe we can agree that we're expecting a little much.
You know what, Dave, the one thing in this analytic world that we live in, and sometimes I know I can be old man, get off my yard. I don't think it's the average that people want as much as the consistent effort that people want. And so when you say there's a drop,
so there's some people that just want consistent effort, but I guarantee you there's a lot of people that just want to see the box score numbers.
No, and I'm with you. But when you say there's a drop off or everyone is a little happy, look, $133 million is a lot of money. But you got to kind of put that in perspective as to Think about it from our perspective. Say you want to go buy a car and you walk into a dealership and you have your mindset the car you want is right in front of you. When you pull out your checkbook and you look at your bank statement, you can't quite get that car, but you can get the car that's one level down. So instead of getting the Escalade ESV, you got to take the base model. And so you take the base model and you're happy, but you're not as happy because every time you see that other ESV, you're like, man, that one came with, and that one came with. And so we got to kind of put that in the Deandre Ayton mindset. Yeah, it's 133 million, but in his mind, he's like, man, I'm the number one overall pick in this draft, and they wouldn't even max me out. So there has to be some feeling on his side too. And a lot of that is him with effort. I get it. But we've seen the NBA overpay a lot of players. So I don't think this is going to go as smooth as we all think it may go just because in our mind we see 133. That's a lot. I don't think he's feeling that way. I mean, he hasn't even said anything. This is a young kid's thing now. Social media means everything.
Yeah.
You see things great, move, whatever. He said nothing. He's radio silent on $133 million. He's not a happy man.
You know what though? I've talked to Ayton and so have you in the post game interviews. Used to be locker room, now it's just at the dais. And he doesn't seem like he's got it in him to hold a grudge. He can be bothered, he can be bugged by stuff, but he's just got that personality. He's just like, you know what, I'm good as long as the messaging around the team is clean. So if he's still getting what he was more frustrated about, I think, in this past year, is that he felt like he wasn't, getting enough focus in the offense. He doesn't want to be the number one guy offensively, but he does want to be one of the most respected and necessary people on the team. Sawbuck said something in the chat that Sawbuck said, well, he said several things, but one thing he said was that all that matters is wins. Well, the Suns have more wins than any other team since the bubble with Deandre Ayton as the center. So it shouldn't matter, right? Sawbucks also says Suns should send him to work out with the Dream. Well, a lot of people have worked out with Hakeem Olajuwon. A lot of centers have worked out with Hakeem Olajuwon. None of them have come back as Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, Marcin Gortat, Robin Lopez, those are guys who went and did a week with Olajuwon in the past. What did that do for their careers? Not a whole lot. And Ayton already has the Olajuwon Dream Shake anyway. They developed last year without working with Olajuwon. So you can't develop somebody's mentality, but just by spending a week with them. Maybe if they went on like, a 2-month retreat in the mountains, maybe he would develop that kind of thing, but that's not going to happen. But anyway, yeah, I hear what you're saying, PLR. We have to watch and wait and see. I don't think he would hold that as a grudge, but I think what's important is the messaging around the team. The cleanliness of the team and messaging is more important than the bottom line on the who did the contract first. Did the Suns have to match? He does become, and I'm going to throw some stats at you guys, he does become one of 23 max players since the 2014 draft. 23 players who got a rookie max. His is only 4 years. Most of those are 5 years, but he's one of 23 now with a max salary after their rookie extension. He is from the 2018 year, which got tied for the most max extensions. And of those 23, 9 had never made an all-star game before they got that max extension. And of those 9, 5 still haven't made an all-star game. So the most notable, most of those being the 2018 guys, only Luka and Trey have made all-star, while Ayton, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Michael Porter Jr. all got maxes and have not yet made the all-star game, but they haven't had much chance. They've had 4 years, but they haven't had that much chance. De'Aaron Fox still has not made any All-Star games. Jamal Murray has not made any All-Star games. He's been injured for a year, but he didn't make any All-Star before that either. And he wasn't really considered an All-Star level guy, even in the year he was healthy. Devin Booker got in over him, and he wasn't really considered for the team. So you've got several guys, and then you've got 3 or 4 that were just one-time All-Stars right before their extension and never made All-Star again, like Brandon Ingram and D'Angelo Russell and guys like that who made All-Star, and Kristaps Porzingis. They all made All-Star right before their extension, but have not made it since, and are not really considered All-Star level players anymore. So Ayton anyway becomes one of those guys who now has a max extension. He should be proud of himself. And it's really, the importance is the clarity of the messaging around the team when he comes back in the fall, because only him and Devin Booker are guaranteed to be on the team in October. We could have a complete turnover because of trades and the whole KD situation. So let's transition over to KD. Any final comments on Ayton before we go to the KD situation?
He's 23. Let's be a little patient here. There's centers, historically speaking, take the longest to develop, and the fact that he was as good as he was in his first playoff run just shows all the upside he has, and every big game he seems to step up for. Game 7 versus Mavs is kind of the outlier as a team, but overall, I'm happy he's back and excited to see him continue to get better.
Same. Happy he's back. And I agree with you, Dave. They really got to clean this one up. I think it's going to take a little bit more massaging than a lot of people think, but I have confidence in the Suns getting this situation cleaned up.
Yeah. My holy king about the Suns' ability to contend next year. Denver and the Clippers are coming this season. Watch out. True. But they didn't make the finals when they were healthy. So we don't know for sure, just because there's talent, that they're going to win all the games. So we'll see. Okay, so let's move on to Kevin Durant. Now, does this kill this? Now, Ayton is guaranteed to be on the team next year. Between him and Devin Booker and Chris Paul, the 3 guys who are almost certainly going to be on the team in the fall, between them 3, they make $90 million just themselves. And you've got to fill out a 15-guy roster. The Suns, below them, they have Mikal Bridges making $21 million. They have 6 more guys making between $5 and $10 million. And then they have 4 guys making league minimum. How the hell do you get KD on this team without being able to use DeAndre Ayton, without being able to use either of your 2 All-Stars? The Suns' only path to that is if Brooklyn wants draft picks over players, which it doesn't appear that they want players over draft picks, some draft picks, but also players. And they really want Donovan Mitchell. Whereas the Utah Jazz are looking for a ton of draft picks for Donovan Mitchell. So that's really the only avenue basically for the Suns to acquire Kevin Durant, although I still think Kevin Durant's coming to this team. But the only avenue is that the Suns find an all-star from another team to get to Brooklyn. Unfortunately, Brooklyn cannot take Donovan Mitchell while keeping Ben Simmons. They have to find a taker for Ben Simmons. Who wants Ben Simmons? And then how many other teams are involved? I mean, the Suns could theoretically take Ben Simmons, but you're not going to really take Ben Simmons if you want Kevin Durant. I mean, that's $75 million in salary right there. You can't acquire that. So where's Ben Simmons going to go if Brooklyn gets Donovan Mitchell, who they probably think is their biggest prize? So it is going to be an interesting rest of the summer on the Kevin Durant side. So we were pretty confident a week ago. Brandon, you predicted the Kevin Durant trade would happen this week, but I think you also thought Ayton would not still be on the Suns, and that would somehow be involved there. What's your percentage guess now that Kevin Durant is on the Suns opening night roster? Percentage guess.
Well, I think opening night will take a slight dip. I'm still pretty confident about it. But at the very least, I think Durant will eventually end up in Phoenix. That's still the answer I'm going to stick to. And I'm pretty confident that it will be in a three-way trade if it does happen, just because, like you said, Brooklyn wants some more win-now guys, and they're going for a younger star. So whether it's with Utah and Donovan Mitchell or, maybe getting creative, even throwing San Antonio in there to take on Ben Simmons, because there's been some links of those two in the past. I think there's some creative ways they can get it done. It's just there's so many moving parts. It's going to be difficult. Miami is still that team to watch in the East because, Pat Riley is Pat Riley, and he'll always find a way.
Nobody thinks Tyler Hero's that good.
Yeah, but
that's the best they can trade.
But if the Suns don't up their offer, then they can probably find a way to make a three-way happen with that same group sending, including Utah in that. So I think there's some ways they can get it done and try to use leverage, but yeah, I think it's just down to Phoenix, Miami, and I feel confident it'll be Phoenix just due to the picks they have. They own all their picks, and the value of Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. And as painful as it will be to deal Mikal, you do it for someone like Kevin Durant, and you don't really think twice about that.
Yeah, real quick. Sorry, PLR. Let me just do a little cleanup in the comments. Brian Abdallah said the Suns cannot take Ben. Technically, they can because they got Ayton for less than the 5-year max. So they could technically take Ben, but they don't want to because that's $75 million in incoming contracts. They don't have that much to send out. I mean, they could. They could send all of their guys under contract over to Brooklyn and make it work, but they're not going to do that. So the Suns literally could take Ben, but they almost certainly don't want to take Ben. And then My Holy King says trade Ben Simmons and Cam Thomas to Utah for Donovan. Yeah, ideally, Ben Simmons would go back for Donovan Mitchell to Utah, but Utah seems to want to rebuild. And I'm not sure if they want a max contract Ben Simmons on that rebuilding team. So PLR, go ahead.
Actually, I have two trains of thoughts. The last person, I heard something really similar to that from a friend of mine that writes back on the East Coast, that Utah, who's looking for 5 to 6 draft picks because they want to tank, hopefully to get the kid from France. So they would be willing, according to what I heard, would be willing to take that Ben Simmons contract because they think he wouldn't play anyway. So it wouldn't be like he would help the team. This is what I heard, that he wouldn't help the team win anyway. Donovan then goes to Brooklyn, and KD then comes here. So they would do that 3-way mix around. The picks go to Utah, the players go to Brooklyn with a couple of other picks, obviously, and the players that the Suns would have. Here's my issue, though. I have an issue with star players over the age of 33 that have been hurt within 2 years when you have to give up a farm for them. So as much as I think the Suns need that dude, because it's been proven now, other than the Pistons back in whenever they beat the Lakers, you have to have a star on your team. I just think that star for the Suns is here. He just hasn't shown it yet, and that's Devin Booker. I would not personally give up Mikal, Cam, Crowder, picks, and all that for a 34-year-old player. I don't care how great he's been in the past, that has been injured, that has hurt an Achilles, had foot surgery, had knee problems. I personally would not do it, not at the age of 34. It would, to me, there are certain players at a certain age, I know their resume. I just wouldn't give up the farm for it. And nowadays, people want 5, 6, 7 picks. This isn't the Barkley for Tim Perry, Hornacek, and whoever else there was thrown in. This isn't those days. So I just, honestly, as much as I like Durant, the price is too much. And
yeah,
so,
here's the thing, though. He had an injury in the last 2 years. Totally agree with that. But he's also been MVP caliber since that injury, and he's averaged 37 and 7 since that injury. And he's been look, he could get injured again. Sure, absolutely. But I wouldn't be as worried about that with Kevin. You've got a 1 or 2 year window with Chris Paul. You've got it, and then you have to figure out how to replace Chris Paul. But man, you've got to acquire KD when you can. You've absolutely got to. I disagree with you on that.
Yeah, but you're giving up everything. We've seen this with other teams. If you give up so much, you don't have the ancillary players that you need to win.
It all depends on what they give up.
So let's say they give up Mikal, Cam, Jay Crowder. You're replacing two starters and your lead bench guy, and coming off your bench now is your warm and fuzzy guys that nobody has confidence in. You need more in today's NBA. The three superstar thing isn't the way to go anymore. It's like two superstars, a really good third, and really good ancillary players. If you give all that up, you have nothing left.
Well, you got to let James Jones build the roster. You got to figure that out. If it takes until training camp to get Kevin Durant, he won't have as much time to build the roster. But they're not going to be trading all of their players. There's 7 players on this team that make between $5 and $21 million. They're not going to be trading all of them. They'll be trading half. So there's still going to be a good team with better depth than KD has had since Golden State. Pimp named Slickback gave us a super chat for $5 to be able to share this comment, and I'll share it with you guys. Something that's being ignored is KD's mental state. Who's to say he won't change his mind again? A year ago, he was all in on Brooklyn, his best friend. Absolutely. But he's absolutely choosing Phoenix. You have at least one good year, and you've got to go for it. I'm a fan of going for the championship and then figure it out after that. That's what I'm going for. I'm not going for the 5 years from now championship. I'm going for the 2023 championship.
So Dave, let me ask you this. A guy who played 55 games last year because of injury. Chris Paul, who is susceptible to injury as the season goes on.
You still got to roll those dice, man. Chris Paul was all NBA. Kevin Durant, MVP caliber. You add those to Devin Booker and you go for the championship. You don't go, oh, it might not have worked out, so I'm not going to try.
Yeah, but you know what?
I'm not asking the girl out because you're afraid she's going to say no.
I agree with you, but I even think even if they trade for Durant and give up the pieces they get, that's still not better than what Golden State has. So why would you give up everything to not even hop the best team that there is in their conference already?
You got to play the games. You don't win the nobody is given a championship in September, or Denver would be a multi-time champion. No. You got to play the games.
I got to disagree with you, PLR, and I get where you're coming from, but how many duos in the league are better than Kevin Durant and Devin Booker?
Okay, but then you got to throw in the if healthy. So then I got to say, well, LeBron and AD. How does
if healthy with AD as well? I mean, he's
right.
More injury prone than Durant.
Listen, I love Durant. I think Durant probably is the hardest guard in the NBA, the toughest dude in the NBA. But I'm not going to give up everything to get something that's amazing. Because as you said, Dave, you still got to play the games. If you give up too much, this is why it's so tricky. If you give, I'm not saying I'm worried about the future. Notice I'm not saying anything about picks. If they want to send Durant here for like Mikal, Cam, and you get to keep everybody else and they just want 4 or 5 picks, fine. But if you've got to gut the team to get him, and then you're out there signing people like Carmelo and Monk and going that Laker route because you have no money, and those are the only players that are available, I don't think that works then.
Okay, let me tell you what I believe, and I think, let's see, Coda Kid put it as I was thinking it. James Jones has a max that he's going to pay for Kevin Durant. James Jones is going to wait this out, and he's going to say, I'm not sending you 5 players. I'm going to send you 2 or 3. I'm going to keep half of my role players at least. That's what he's and he's probably not even right now. The rumor is that he hasn't even offered Mikal yet. He's only offered up to Cam Johnson and less than the max on draft picks. So I think James Jones agrees with you, PLR. You can't give up everybody to get KD, and then all you've got is, because you're going to have Ayton, Booker, Chris Paul, and KD, but you got to have more than that. That's a hell of a foursome, though. That's an all-star level foursome. People have not commented much lately about the fact that Deandre Ayton, before he got sick in December and missed several games, like a month worth almost of games, before that happened, for that first 6 weeks of the season, he was actually being talked about as a last in the All-Star reserves potentially. That's how good Ayton was. Then he wasn't quite as good the rest of the year. He was good the rest of the year, but he could have made the All-Star game this past year if he had stayed healthy. If he does stay healthy. So that's 4 All-Star level players on your team, and then you keep 2 or 3 of the role players that you've got. I mean, I'm praying Landry Shamet goes to the Nets. And I think they backed that up by signing Damian Lee and Josh Okogie, because those guys are both the exact same size and shape as Landry Shamet for a lot less money. Please, Nets, take Shamet back. And then
they can bring Abdul Nader back for you then, Dave.
I'll take Abdul Nader. It's too bad, although he'll probably sign with Atlanta, because they already signed Aaron Holiday and Frank Kaminsky, so they might as well sign Abdul Nader. But he has not signed with anybody yet, so I would not be surprised if Abdul Nader becomes that guy. But I do think James Jones has a max that he will pay for Kevin Durant, because he does agree with you, PLR, and that you can't give up the entire role-playing set of guys. And he would ideally love to keep Mikal Bridges, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. And really, when you look back and pull back on the scope, would you rather have 2 MVP level years of Kevin Durant, or 2 really fun, smiley years of Mikal Bridges? I think you would take the Kevin Durant. I love Mikal Bridges, but he's not Kevin Durant. It
reminds me of the whole Chris Paul thing, and with Rubio and Oubre, but to a lesser degree. Because Durant's, I think, a lot of people just need to be reminded how damn good Durant is, and like the Olympic run too, just leading Team USA with Booker shows they can play together. And I think that's where that relationship kind of started to take off. A
lot of these super teams I've heard started with the Olympics, and them playing together and winning golds together. And you see the picture of Booker and Durant, and Booker was the second or third best player on that gold medal team this past year.
Between the All-Star game and Olympics, that's where those relationships are. You typically, can start to form. And I would just really love to see how defenses try to guard Booker and Durant, because you're not going to double team KD and with Booker on the court and vice versa. So, and DeAndre rolling to the rim, like it's just, and Chris Paul picking them apart, like that like group of 4 players right there, I think could do a lot of damage. And offensively, it would be a machine that in the playoffs, that's what it comes down to, right? We know the Suns can win in the regular season, but in the playoffs, you need someone that can get you a bucket. And that's why in the Bucks series, and that's why in the Mavs series, and even in the Pelican series, this team was struggling to score if it wasn't Booker and if Paul was having an off night. And you need that. Obviously, Kevin Durant's like the highest example of this, to where you can just throw him the ball and get a bucket. But if the Suns don't get Kevin Durant and run it back, they need to find someone that could put the ball in the basket. And there's not a lot of those just, hanging around.
Those guys are not waiting around.
Exactly. So I'd take Durant all day long. And I get the concerns, but also with a championship window, you're going to have veteran players that will come to Phoenix for less to fill out those roster spots. And the free agent market isn't great right now, but there's still some decent players that I think the Suns can talk into coming for less.
Here comes Melo and Dwight Howard.
I think Melo. Yeah, I can see Melo. I think that's going to happen.
God, don't do that. Don't make me cover Melo. Please.
It's going to happen.
No. Okay. Kevin's Disciples in the super chat gave us $5 to talk about his comment. Wait out what? KD is under a 4-year deal. Unless KD sits out, the Nets are not trading him for scraps. We should focus on building the team we have. That's why I think the Suns matched on Ayton, and they're willing to wait out the Nets. If the Nets want to take the Suns, what the Suns are offering, they'll acquire KD. But James Jones is not going to give away the farm. He's got it set up just perfectly. And the Suns, guess what? This team won 64 games last year. So they have a great chance.
You know something, Dave and Zona? I think our superstar is already here, though. I really, truly do. I think we're going to see a completely different Devin Booker this year. The one thing is I know Devin hears but doesn't hear, but I don't think he's happy with the way he went out in Game 7. I understand it's a team concept, but you guys know the rule. If you're the star of the team, you're going out dying. You're going out 2 for 27, not 4 for 11 or 3 for 12. I honestly believe he's going to be that dude next year. Now, I'm not saying don't get Durant. Again, I just said don't trade the farm for him. But if Durant does not come here, I think next year's playoffs, you will see a different Suns team just based on the hunger that Booker will have once he gets to the playoffs. I think the regular season for him is going to be a platform to get to the playoffs because I think he has something in itself to say, wait a second, that's not me. That's not how I go out. I think we will see a whole new different superstar, and I think he will ascend to one of those top 5-6 players in the NBA based on what he does in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, and I think he was honestly on his way this playoff run before that hamstring injury. Like that 31-point half he had against the Pelicans, like that was a game he could have scored, 50 plus in pretty easily. And so I think he was on that. It's just going to come down to the hamstrings. Like if he can stay healthy, I agree he can be that guy. But with the injury in the Bucks series and now this, it's just kind of like a lot of wear and tear. And the Suns have played a lot of games since the bubble, as someone mentioned earlier in the comments. So hopefully this full regular scheduled offseason will let them kind of rest a little bit and actually get a full offseason to improve and recover.
Yeah, Kevin's Disciples had a follow-up with another super chat. Thank you so much for your donations, man. Our fan base is being unrealistic. Harden put on a fat suit and had a year left on a deal, and the Rockets still got back a haul. These trades are never cheap. No, but what the Rockets got was role players and draft picks. That's what the Suns have. The Rockets did not get all-stars back for James Harden. And it's true he put on the fat suit, and Kevin Durant doesn't have a fat suit to put on. That would look really weird. But here's the thing. Stars get where they want to go. That's the problem. They figure this out. And we're being unrealistic. But I also think the Nets are being unrealistic and thinking they're going to get an all-star and draft picks back. The Suns have draft picks to send. They have all their picks. They can do picks and pick swaps and all that stuff for the next 7 years. What the Nets are hoping for also is that plus an all-star. They're not going to get it because Kevin Durant's not going to commit to another team. Yeah, you mentioned earlier what's KD's mindset. No one's going to acquire KD if he's not willing to say he wants to play for you even today, let alone a year from now. So the Suns are the only team he wants to play for. He's trying to force this to happen. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, he stays with the Nets. And he stays with the Nets, and that's it. And then James Jones gets to figure out the rest of the year on who can create shots aside from Booker, because Chris Paul is kind of on the decline on that. Is that one of their own players developing? Is that another guy they acquire? I don't know. But at this point, the Suns are clearly going to wait out the Nets, and we're at the dead part of the season, the off season anyway. And so everybody's got to wait each other out, period. So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you, Kevin, for posting those good questions. Let's see. We've got Pimp named Slickback again. It gave us a small donation. Thank you so much. Facts. Don't give up the farm. Please don't. I really don't think James Jones is going to do that at all. He's not going to give up the whole farm. He will probably end up giving up Mikal Bridges for it. But it won't be like 5-6 guys. The Suns are still going to have a good, very, very good supporting team. All right, PLR, I just had to mute you when you're not talking because of the background noise is picking up there. You're getting popular. Are they standing around you and watching every move you make?
Autographs I've signed as soon as we're done.
All right, so let's see. Let's go on to a third part of our show. I think we've made our feelings known about a potential KD move. So now we're going to go into the third quarter. This is a true-false section. And I'm going to make a statement, and you guys are going to say whether you think it's true or whether it's false. And I want the folks in the chat to participate as well, and I'll share your votes. The first true-false. Ish Wainwright gets a deal from the Suns, gets a guaranteed 1+ year deal from the Phoenix Suns. Zona, you first.
Yes, I think both parties want to get it done. It's going to happen. Just a matter of time. He's kind of like Jones's project. It seems like they've really been invested in developing him, and I liked what I've seen in the summer league, so I think they'll get it done.
PLR, what do you think?
Sure. I think the question is who signs first, him or Murray, the quarterback. Since we're talking about football players, who signs first, him or Murray? Yeah. But the Suns will do it.
All right, so we've got all trues in the chat here. There's one false from Jaden Carrera. Do we say your name twice? I just did. Okay, so we got one false in there, but everybody else says true. I think that definitely my concern, though, is that they haven't signed Ish yet. And he's been playing a very much a supporting role on the Summer League team. He's not a leader because he doesn't pass. He doesn't create shots, but he's made 45% of his threes, which is really the key. The Suns, a guy in Ish's position would be standing in the corners waiting for a catch and shoot, and he's really nailed that for the past 20 games or so through the playoffs and through Summer League and all that. He is potentially a really good player there. My continuing concerns are he's not that great on defense. He's not that great at rebounding despite his thickness. He looks like a PJ Tucker size, but he doesn't really defend as well or even rebound as well. So he's not quite going to be a guy who makes $90 million the rest of his career like PJ Tucker did, but I think he's worth a guaranteed contract. The Suns do have one spot open there are 14 guys under contract right now after Ayton was matched. They have one spot open. Wainwright should get that last one. My only concern is he hasn't gotten it yet. And I got to wonder why he hasn't gotten it yet. Okay, so that's our first true false. Let's see. The second is, will the Suns, now the Suns are at the moment about $15 million over the luxury tax threshold. That means that $15 million will be taxed increasingly every $5 million by a greater amount, where he's got to pay Robert Sarver or whoever's owning the team next year has to pay that plus to his fellow owners as like a tax, but it only goes to the other owners. That tax right now is adding up to $60 million in luxury tax for the 15 over. Sorry, $30 million. I apologize. $30 million in luxury tax for the 15 over that they are right now. So $45 million overall over the tax threshold between what they're paying straight out and then what they're paying in tax penalty. Will the Suns remain over this tax threshold, still be over the tax threshold when the season kicks off? PLR, you first.
Absolutely. Throw the 1.5 mil to the other owners and let's keep moving. Plus, I'll be honest with you. With everything going on with Sarver right now, the last thing he wants to do is to be portrayed as cheap when it's about a team that's winning. He stayed out of the media for the most part. You don't hear anything. We know that a decision is coming. The last thing he's going to do now is pull back on the first string. Yeah, they will definitely be over.
They did put out that they made it really clear they're willing to go up to $100 million over into luxury tax payments if they can get KD, and they're willing to be already in the luxury tax as it is. But they don't actually pay this fine until next offseason if they've stayed over the luxury tax the whole year. So we'll see what happens. Brandon, what do you think? Are they going to stay over the luxury tax for opening night?
if that was a tweet from PLR, I would have retweeted it. I agree with everything you just said. I'll say true. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer at this point.
All right, sounds good. So we have, I agree with you guys too. They're going to stay over the luxury tax, definitely. And even with or without KD, they're going to be over the luxury tax. Okay, third question on the true false. And you know what? I'm going to take a cue from the folks in the chat because I shouldn't have brushed over our summer league team so quickly. Third question is, will anybody besides Ish Wainwright from our summer league team stay with the team into training camp or get a two-way contract? Have you seen anything? I know you guys are watching summer league like you're consuming dinner, but have you guys seen anybody you want to keep into training camp at least, if not into the season? Brandon, you first.
Yeah, I think King is worth a shot. Like he's at the very least worth a camp invite. Yeah, last name. You guys are probably related somehow.
Yeah, we look a lot alike.
Yeah, definitely. I could see the resemblance, but no, King should get an invite. I don't know. He's been in the NBA for a couple teams, and I think he has the talent. It's just all about opportunity and roster spots. If the Suns do make a big KD trade and need like a 15th man to fill in one of their last spots, then I could see it. But as the roster stands now, it's with Ish probably taking that last spot. There's not a lot of room, so
there's just the two ways.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's going to be tough to fit him in unless the trade happens. But yeah, King is a guy that I would say has earned an invite.
Did the Suns have a summer league team? I'm sorry. I was watching Days of Our Lives. I didn't even know they had a summer league team. So no, I don't think anybody's going to be there.
Dean St. Louis had a question on our prior true false. How would the team make up the extra tax they need to pay? No, it literally just comes out of the owner's pocket, the ownership group's pockets. So they pay the salaries to the players, but then that $30 million in tax or $60 million or $90 million, whatever it is, they literally cut a check to the league office that gets distributed among the rest of the owners, divided by 29. Distributed equally. That's how, and it comes literally out of the owner's pocket.
Dave, may I ask you who asked that question?
What's that?
Who asked that question?
Dean St. Louis.
Dean St. Louis, I'll tell you how he pays. You pay for the $14 hot dogs, the $52 parking, and the $17 beers. That's how he gets the money to pay that luxury tax.
Yeah, don't be surprised if those prices go up. That's true. KD merch, yeah, Brian Abdallah. KD merch will help for sure. If you get KD, that's what's going to, all the extras will make up that cost. And that's how Golden State is paying. Golden State has readily admitted that the revenue they get off their team is what helps pay their luxury tax bill. Because the owners have that much more money lining their pockets, for sure. Absolutely. That's real talk is right. Okay, the next true false. Jock Landale basically signed on or got acquired on a minimum contract to be the Frank Kaminsky of this season. Is Jock Landale going to play a bigger role than Frank Kaminsky, I'm going to put it that way, did this past season? Before he got hurt, like, will Jock Landale be like a Frank, like a better Frank, or a worse Frank? Let's go. You PLR first.
He'll play as many games as Frank did when Frank was hurt.
Okay, all right. Zona, what do you think?
I think he'll surprise some people. I think he'll probably step in that same exact role Frank did. Not as Frank went on that run where he was just torching everyone kind of early in the season. I don't think that's going to happen where he's like starting and people are questioning, whether he should close the game over Ayton. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but I do think Jock will play in most of their games and, 10 to 15 minutes. He can shoot a little bit. He's tough, more athletic than Frank. And I think he's going to surprise some people.
All right. I don't know. I got to see more about Jock Landale. It would have to be injury based because You've got Ayton, and then you got Bismack really as the top two centers. And who knows whether the Suns will even try to go small this year a little bit and not play centers as much. But they would need bigger forwards if they were going to do that. So we'll see. Maybe KD plays some center. Okay, the next true false. Josh Okogie gets more run than Damian Lee or Landry Shamet. Zona, you first.
So this is tricky. I think if the Suns trade for Durant and Bridges is gone, true. As their current roster stands, false.
All right. PLR, what do you say?
No one's playing more than Landry Shamet. So absolutely false.
Monty's favorite. You know how many points Landry Shamet averaged in that Dallas series? Like 3.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Zona said 100%.
All right. Next, last true false. Suns will acquire somebody else to be Chris Paul's backup point guard to replace Cam Payne. PLR, you first.
Actually, I think Cam Payne is going to have a great year this year. Here's why. Every time his back is against the wall and it looks like he's about to go out, there's another motivation factor for him to play hard. And it seems kind of weird, but we all know people like that. When things are going well, you can't get them to do anything. But as soon as they're threatened with being fired or you moving on from them, then they clean up their act. I don't know if the Suns have the money to necessarily go out and get someone that's going to be better than him, because then you have to upgrade it. I don't know if there's an upgradable person than him, but I really do think he's going to have a good year this year because he knows after this year that they're willing to walk on that deal. So I think this is it for him.
Ted Lubin, I just want to make a comment here real quick. Ted Lubin says, Colin Sexton, please. No, the Suns absolutely cannot acquire Colin Sexton because that would be a sign and trade, and that would hard cap them and force them to dump the roster, basically. So they're already have way too much invested. There's no way you just can't take on a sign and trade. That's the same reason the Nets couldn't take on Deandre Ayton. Okay. Zona, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree with PLR in the sense that they're not going to have the money to go out and get someone that's a clear upgrade, but I do think they will bring some competition in. They're, Elfrid Payton, please, Lord, go somewhere else. We need someone with a little more upside that can fit the system better, and I think they'll find someone and try to give Cam Payne a run for his money, and we'll see. I mean, I think there's still some more dominoes to fall, just depending on how the KD thing goes. But there's some decent free agents out there and some sneaky ways they can try to get Cam Payne motivated a little bit, and we'll see how they do this.
All right, that is our true false section. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I had a great time. I hope you guys had a great time, everybody in the chat. Let's start doing a wrap-up. Final thoughts and how to find you around the webs. Let's start with PLR. Final thoughts and how to find you.
There's 2 ways. You can get me on Twitter at PLR on Sports. And you can also follow the Sports Cave with the K on the Twitter, the Instagram, and the Facebook. And then we are on every day, the Cave Show. Come check us out. Have a lot of fun. And Dave, always appreciate you having me on. It's always good to see you, my man Brandon. It's always a pleasure to hang with you guys.
Yeah, it's been a fun one. You can find me on Twitter at zonahoops_. I work on brightsideofthesun.com and zonahoops.com. And let's go get KD. I think Dave is frozen.
I'm frozen?
No, there you go. Now we can hear you.
We had a fun little fan who joined the chat with just the letter A as their name because they're hiding. They say the Suns are stuck with the same team, but be ready for us Lakers for talking all that smack. Talking smack. Let me see here. When was the last time the Lakers actually beat the Suns? Was it even this century? I'm trying to remember.
It was when the Lakers were dancing on the bench, and since then, Crowder's salsa danced all over them, and they've won 11 in a row. So
I think it's 12 now with the summer league.
12.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter when, where, how. It's the Lakers suck. And you know what, you can come in here and you can talk about it however you want to talk about it. You got to get your joy somehow, because it's certainly not watching basketball. So my name is Dave King. You can find me at Dave King NBA and all my writing at brightsideofthesun.com. And we love having you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon.